Let's have a look at the race format and the text-to-vote question, how the segments should be divided. Now, as a past winner, of this race, what's your preference?
Well, when I look at that, my first thought is, as a driver, I'd probably like to have that last segment be about 15 laps. So that gives me a little bit of time to get myself, in a position to win. It affects the handling of the car just a little bit more. I think that's going to be a premium at Daytona this year. But then as a fan, when I look at that, I said, no, the fans like to, they like things to happen quick. They want to see the action, and so what do we, most of the time in races, what's the most exciting part? They like the late cautions and the restarts. So I'm thinking as a fan, I'm going to probably go for the 10 laps, 35, 30 and 10 laps, because that's just going to add a little bit more intensity to that shootout at the end right there, to the final segment. Like I said, as a driver, 15 would be, I think I'd like. Probably as a fan, I'd have to vote for 10.
Larry, Jeff, when we've had a long first segment in this race, we've seen a lot of racing the first lap or two, and then it looks like kind of it's been a long, drawn-out test session.
Yeah, ever since that they emailed me what the options are going to be, I've put a lot of thought into it, and honestly, I think it's a package deal that goes along with the vote as far as that pit stop at the end of the first segment. I think we sometimes get caught up in long and short segments because we've been used to that type of scenario in the All-Star race at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Obviously, this is not Charlotte, this is Daytona. I tend to like making it where we don't have a long or a short segment period. That's one reason I kind of somewhat like the double A there, where you've got the 30, the 25, the 20. But again, when we get into the discussion about the pit stop, I think I can maybe wrap this package together how I think I'd like to see it go.
Well, Jeff, let's look at that B segment, for example. Do we even know if these cars will go 40 laps without needing a stop at Daytona?
Well, I know. I think
ours would.
I'm with you, Mike, when it comes to that. That's one thing I think with this new car. There's going to be a lot of unknowns, and we saw that even during testing. Being this is the first race of the year, we don't really have anything to look back on to have an idea how far the car is going to go, how much, how the lap time speeds are really going to wind up working out. So that's going to be a big factor for these crew chiefs. And I think the cool thing about it is that as a crew chief, you're really going to have to put your thinking cap on. You already heard Larry say, as soon as I figured out that this is what they're thinking about, I've already gone through some due processes. I'm in favor, a little bit like Darrell. I like the idea of a 35 and a 30 and a 10. That 10-lap run, for me, makes it easy. Because I know I got to get my guy up front in that second segment. And I got to tell him he's got to stay up front. I think that's going to be as always, you got to be up front here, and staying there is going to be very, very important. But for the fans, I think this offers the best opportunity to see a driver run as hard as he can, because you got to have the first two segments. The car's got to be set up to where he can go fast, but can you trim it down a little bit? Can you take something, put some more tape on it? And a lot of these guys will put tape on the front end of it, take a chance to move, burn the engine out if they have to go quicker in that last segment. I think 10 laps kind of lends itself that way.
If I understand this correctly, though, the drivers will know the segment laps when the first green flag waves. That'll be communicated to the teams. So, green flag, we're racing. Here's how long you're racing. Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, these guys are, this is a crew chief's delight, because no matter what happens, you can't blame them.
Oh yeah.
Don't blame me. I didn't make the rules. Don't blame me. I didn't ask for 4 tires or 2 or whatever. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. And what's fun about this, and we've seen it coming, is how social media and how Twitter and particularly has affected all of us in this room. It's a constant reminder almost of what kind of job you're doing and what the fans really want to see. And there's not a lot of opportunities in a year for us to have an event like this. So to be able to take this event, and it reminds me of when we started the Winston here in Charlotte, and it was almost like a fan day, a fan event. It was meant to be an event for the fans, and we turned it into a race. We turned it into rules and cars and people, you know, and really and truly it was meant to be for the fans. You cannot avoid this. This is for the fans, by the fans, and I think that's going to be fun.
And what I think is really neat is that some concepts were proven in these two all-star events and worked their way into the Sprint Cup Series, and I'm thinking mainly double file restarts with the Latin cars in the back. Sure. That came out of all-star competition, not point race competition.
Yeah, well, I think the fans, I listen to Sirius Radio and I watch everything I can on TV, and our fans today are so much more knowledgeable. And that makes all of us a lot more better, I think.
Makes us more accountable.
Makes us more accountable. The smarter the fans are, and trust me, we got some smart fans out there these days. I mean, I heard a guy this morning calling in about the coefficient of drag on a race car. And I would have thought about a fan in the undercarriage of the car. So they know so much more. And this is an opportunity for them not only to show they know about the car, they know how to run a race.
So yeah, the fans, the teams will actually know the segments. I think it closes out on Wednesday, February the 13th. So they'll have 2 or 3 days to think about this. But I was telling the guys on Sirius Radio earlier, when you look at this race outside of this segment, the only knowns are the fact that it's going to be 75 laps. We know the 22 drivers that are eligible for it, and that it's going to be broadcast on Fox on that Saturday night. Outside of that, there's a ton of unknowns that's going to be unfolded as this race progresses.
I'll go back and say one thing that we talk about the influence of fans. All we got to do is just watch and see what Dale Earnhardt Jr. wants. That'll probably give us a pretty good idea what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure there won't be any numerical order starts.
Yeah, that probably has a limited opportunity of success.
But don't downplay that fan vote of how this field is going to take the green flag, because we know at Daytona you can lead lap 1, and when you come back around on lap 15 or lap 5, you can be running dead last. But the thing about it, remember, that goes with the way the drivers take the green flag or the way they start, is the fact of pit selection. We know no matter what, there's going to be one pit stop.
And here's the other thing, Mike. This is the first competition that the Gen 6 car will see. And so from our testing, we saw a lot of questions, a lot of unknowns about how this car was going to race.
Right.
With the rounded bumper, and we saw, Dale Jr. trying to push Marcus Ambrose, and that didn't work out. And so this is going to be an experiment, not just for how the drivers and the fans and all are going to react, but also how this car is going to act in competition.
Let's go back to this numerical order thing for just a second. It wouldn't be the first time that a driver changed his car number in a special event race. Jimmy Johnson's 48, they had a 5% promotion. Didn't they run 5 on the car?
So Dale Jr. runs back and takes over 1-8, right? And he becomes 8 again.
I'm not saying it couldn't happen.
I'm not saying it couldn't, but I'm pretty sure it won't.
And that's another story. Let's move
There's
on.
still those guys that have the final say,
Let's move to the pit stop, because this vote closes at the drop of the green flag for the first segment. And when I first read this about the pit stops, I thought, okay, no required pit stop, 2-tire stop, 4-tire stop, but Robin Pemberton clarified it. If the fans vote no pit stop, that means you cannot make a pit stop during that caution period between segments. That would change everything.
And that goes back to one of, I think, Larry's point, which you brought up at the very beginning. If they happen to choose, for whatever reason, that first segment being 40 laps long, there'd be a lot of guys that have to be real, real careful not to run out of fuel before they go through that caution section and go back to green. Because the only way you can make a pit stop, you'll have to come back in that second segment, and you'll have to come down pit road. So that will be, that unknown won't be determined until the 13th of February. So that's going to make that part a little bit on the hold your breath until we get something what the fans feel about it.
Yeah, I think the fans that are going to be voting and that follow this sport, they're knowledgeable enough to know that these cars race the best with 4 tires on them. Yes. And so I think if I was a fan, I wanted to see a great show. I don't care who my driver was. I think they would realize. I think most fans would say, yeah, those guys need 4 tires. So I think if I were a fan, I would vote that way.
Well, and that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. The reason I like the 30, 25, and the 20. is the fact that I felt like I put a lot of thought into this weekend, that if you take that type of a segment, you don't have that long 40 laps in the beginning, and you wrap that in with double A there, no pit stop, that means that the fans are going to see absolutely 100%, shortly probably into that second segment, that they're going to see green flag pit stops. And they're probably going to see these guys come to pit road and get 4 tires. They're going to have to be full of fuel, but they can't do it when the segment starts. Again, wrapping it in with that choice of segment, because they've got to get a few laps into the second segment to be able to make it to the end of the race. But Dave Rogers, who won this race a year ago with Kyle Busch, I mean, he said it best in some quotes that I read earlier this morning. He said, what we have to do as a team, we have to go into this race with all these unknowns, with a ton of what-if situations. What if the fans vote for no stop? What if they vote for the 2 tires? What if they vote for the 4 tires? We have to have that in our arsenal, depending, because they're not going to know till the green flag waves to start the race what the scenario is going to be.
And how many times, Mike, have you turned to Larry and I in the booth and said, what would you do? Well, this is a great opportunity for us to turn to the fans and say, okay, what would you do?
Or a great opportunity to look at Mike and say, what would you do?
Well, just watching right now, it looks like our audience is telling us they want to see some drama as far as seeing a green flag pit stop. And everybody knows how much that can break you up. And I think the determining factor there, once again, is who's going to be too out of control. Maybe get caught speeding down pit road. It can change the whole dynamic of who's in the front versus who's in the back.
Yeah,
I think the no pit stop choice leads to a predictable response, and we may have to invoke the Frank Stoddard rule. You know, that at the end of that segment, when you come to pit road on the last lap of the segment under green, take the caution flag on pit road and then be all ready to go and gassed and lined up. If you remember, in qualifying for an all-star race, it was 3 laps with a pit stop. Everybody made their pit stop on the first or second lap except Jeff Burton and Frank Stoddard. They pitted just before the start-finish line. They ran all 3 laps on the racetrack, came in, got their tires, jumped across the line. Of course, what you're saying, better to be a rule maker than a rule breaker?
Change the rules right after that.
They did.
But see, a lot depends, that strategy would depend on what the fans choose as far as the segment format. Because if we go with a shorter first segment and you do that, you're still going to have to make another stop to be able to get there on fuel. So it's kind of a package deal.
I think if we don't know about this car, and that's the thing I keep referring back to, is we don't know how this car is going to race. It looks like it's going to race great. But if you do a green flag pit stop, there's always so many variables that could, you know, you can speed on pit road, you can have trouble in the pits. Plus, you know the field is going to get spread out if you do that green flag pit stop. I think if I would rather have everybody do the same thing when it came to pit stop. And that way you keep the field packed up, keep them all together, and let the racing be decided on the track.
So you want 2 or you want 4?
I'd take 2.
Do I?
I'd take 2 in this case.
Hopefully they're okay with you, DW.
Well, I know that's what I'd do if I want to get back out there.
Okay.
Why not, Jeff?
They're agreeing with me because they're not really saying, they don't really know yet because it's up and down.
I know what the guy I worked with in 97, 98 would say.
I ain't leaving till the
4, I'm not leaving till you give them to me.
Well, all I know is over the last couple of years, we've been wrong more times than we've been right about taking 2.
Yes, we have.
I can't tell you, and I've heard the other guys do the same thing. They argue about who to take 2, and taking 2 usually wins the race.
But see, you're being short-sighted again. This is a longer race than just one stop.
And everybody will be forced
this
here
segment, what
to
difference
be on the
does it make?
same agenda.
Darrell, what difference does it make?
Could make a lot.
Yeah, but at the end of the race, guess what? If I come down then, I can get 2 tires if I have to come back to pit road.
Well, then maybe you just won't get any, and I'll get 2, and I'll beat you down.
I'm glad that you know that you never sat on top of the pit box.
Well, you don't have to do anything. Just look at your phone. Looks like I'm going to be taking 2. You might have already been doing that before. I don't know.
You know, it's funny.
Junior said take 2.
It's funny you bring that up because I know one driver, I think it was Carl Edwards, say it'll be amazing how much the team will be monitoring their sprint phones in this whole vote to kind of get a feel maybe where they kind of know where this thing's actually heading.
Now, was he going to have his phone in his car with him?
No, that's good work.
Oh, you really don't think that'd be fair, right?
Yeah, but it is a non-point race.
That's right. And
It's still run under NASCAR rules.
It is unlimited.
And that is a information gathering. Whatever kind of device they prohibit, that's what it is.
What we've concluded here is they may have phones in their car, and Junior may take one of his 8s off of the side of his car.
So far, so good.
I think we're on top of it. All right, let's move to the third, and I would say the most controversial aspect of the fan vote. How many drivers are eliminated at the end of the second segment? And on this one, the fan voting concludes at the beginning of the segment. So green flag, oh, by the way, 0, 2, 4, or 6 of you will not be around for segment.
Yeah, this is the best part.
Yes.
Because you can't drag around in the back. You can't use that strategy of stay out of trouble. I mean, you got to go. This is the part of the whole thing that makes it a real aggressive race. You know, you're going to be looking at where you are, and you're going to say, man, I don't want to be in the back. I don't want to be in the back 6 cars. Now, is there a chance you could get shuffled back there out of your own control? Sure. But I know how many race weeks Jimmy Johnson or a number of guys will go to the back and ride around way to the end and then go to the front, and this is going to eliminate that.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with our audience. I want to see 6 eliminated, which if all 22 drivers take the green flag, that means the final segment, regardless of the number of laps, will be 16 drivers. The X Factor, unlike at Charlotte or anywhere else we go, the X Factor at Daytona, Talladega, you can get put back there and not be of your doing, not be of your making, just the way the draft works. And looks like the needle's moving a little bit the other way, but I'd like to see 6 drivers eliminated.
I think so too.
But what do you do if all of a sudden the influence as far as the first segment is concerned, or 2 segments, or something happens like we saw during testing? May not be 16 cars left or 22 cars
You
left.
understand that's optimistic?
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I've already seen what these drivers did. You know, get out there and just a little bit of friendly practice.
Well, then
this is for a little bit of money and a big trophy.
Well, then Miss Brent would win the race.
Well, you don't have to cast your vote until after the first segment.
You got to get through this.
So I guess I will ask this question because I'm not sure this has been addressed. Is this basically the vote will be based on how many drivers actually take the green flag?
No.
For that segment or the race?
We're not positive, but 6 will be eliminated at the end of segment 2.
Regardless.
My understanding is the last 6 drivers running, and I'm wrong. Okay, 6 drivers are out at the end of segment 2.
Come on, talk to me. Coming to pit road.
Let us get back to you on that one.
6 drivers, up to 6 drivers would be could be eliminated from competition. Yeah. Well, in the 50s and 60s, there was a popular novelty race called, the format was called Australian Pursuit.
Yeah.
And it's something they would do with the short tracks in particular, where at the end of every lap, the last place car had to pull off and go to the infield. Yeah. And we're not in a position for every lap to mean something like this, but I think every segment in this race should mean something, and there should be something at stake. Somebody needs to go home.
Well, I agree. I like it. That's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
You know, when you're coming down the end of the night and you've done everything right, and all of a sudden you find yourself in the back 6 cars not by your own making, that's a lot of pressure. What are you going to do? You know, you're going to be some desperation set in if you are one of those good cars and you happen to be in the back.
Well, you know the best thing about this is nobody's going to go home and say, well, we had a good points day.
No, they're not.
Who finished second last year? I have no idea. I don't know if it matters.
I don't know, but last year's race was awesome.
Yes, it was.
That was a fireworks show with the race.
Literally.
I think this was going to be the same way. I think the thing we got to look forward to is that this will be the first race for this new car.
Yes.
And we're going to actually see this car out there in a pack, the drivers and us as well are all going to see what the potential of this car is. Can they hook up in a 2-car tandem and push each other? We don't really know. It didn't look like it from the test, but these guys always seem to figure out a way. So that's another thing that's going to be kind of evolving as this race goes along. what can we not do with this car?
And drivers and their teams, they may downplay the fact of being the first to win in something new. You know, drivers want to win the first race at a new racetrack. And I think there's something to be said that this will actually be the first race with this Gen 6 car. And I know back in 1981, we were talking about this at testing. We made a huge change in race cars, completely new chassis, bodies, wheelbase, tread width, everything was brand new. And these two guys right here won the first race, which was then I think the Busch Clash in 1981, which was the first race with that downsized race car.
Yeah, we were texting all of our friends that day, remember?
Yeah, we really were. We only had one. I think it was June. But you go back to what all this kind of brings into play. What I think about as a crew chief is that when you're getting ready for the Daytona 500, we have that warm up as far as the 150s are concerned. But this race, I think, will allow a lot of these crew chiefs maybe to try some things and go for it in a different way as far as drivers and crew chiefs that maybe help them with the 500. Because this is almost like a real race scenario. You don't really know what's going to happen until they drop the green flag. You know what the lineup is as far as the segments are concerned, but some of the other things, will help influence you throughout the course, I think, the rest of the weekend. So it's going to be, I think, a great learning tool for the 500 as well as the 150s. It may actually, help maybe somebody get into the Daytona 500 because of the information we are able to extract out of the Sprint Unlimited.
Think about this. Think about this. If this could have effect on other sports, football, for instance. The waiting for the fans to decide if it's 4th and 1 or to go for it or not. Can you imagine the fights in bars?
Yes, we can.
I mean, we've seen that commercial where they want to prolong the game, and so something different can happen. And so I think this could have a really profound effect on all of our special events that we have. This is a great format for what we can look forward to, I think.
Well, look at this. NASCAR is getting out of their comfort zone. The fans said, hey, wouldn't it be fun to go back on the dirt? We're going to Eldora.
Right.
Look at what Sprint's done here to put fan involvement into the control tower, if you will, by determining the parameters of how we run the race. I mean, this could be big things ahead in the future for this sport with what we're seeing started here today.
Well, it really could, and it kind of reminds me of something Rick Hendrick has done lately with HendrickCars.com. Rick put his money where his mouth is. Rick said NASCAR and Sprint Cup, and it sells product. When I go to a sponsor and I tell my sponsor, put your name on my car because it's going to sell product, and Rick believes that, and so he put his money where his mouth. Sprint. How do we involve the people that use these things? How do we get them involved in this game? And this is a perfect way to do it. I think it's really just reaching out to your customers, and your customers are our fans.
It's the next big step. It truly is.
Well, and it's hard to believe that our good friends at what was Nextel and now Sprint, Tim mentioned it a while ago, the 10th year of being a part of our sport, and the way that they have stepped up, the way fans are involved, the way fans are engaged in our sport, certainly through the help of the devices that they provide service for. And, we lost probably the best friend that our sport has ever had in 2007, Bill France Jr. And we all know that Bill France Jr. worked as hard as anybody saying we're going to keep this a fan-friendly sport. And I got to believe he's going to smile pretty big when he looks and sees the results of what's going on here, because this is about the fans. This is a race for the fans.
And it's Saturday night TV live on Fox. All the pomp and circumstance. It's the first big event. It's right after the Super Bowl. I think we're going to have a huge audience just to see, just because of this format. People are going to tune in to see, wow, is this going to work or not?
And the other thing is too, Mike, what you see, at least again, what the audience seems like is telling us that they really would like to see the 6 cars eliminated. So to me, they're telling us that they feel like that less is more. And that could make it real interesting again when you are taking people that can theoretically influence a race. And you think about, well, are those 6 cars really cars that are capable of winning? But now we reduce the field down. Is it going to make it easier for those, basically 16 cars to go at it the way we want to see them go at it with a blanket type finish, like you'd like to call it, before I enter this race?
Well, it's a brand new era, and it's a brand new event, the Sprint Unlimited, and we'll be thrilled to bring it to you Saturday night, February 16th on Fox. So vote early and vote often and have some fun with it, and we'll see how the drivers and the teams deal with it on February 16th. Larry has a commitment, but Jeff and Darrell and Tim Considine will be available for one-on-ones. And before we go to that, let's have a look at what some of NASCAR's Sprint Cup drivers have to say about the Sprint Unlimited.
The name Sprint Unlimited is pretty fitting here because the fans have unlimited access and unlimited input into this event.
It was natural for us to, at this time, to let the fans be more engaged and vote on all the things that they can vote on.
The Sprint Unlimited this year is really just a perfect example of what Sprint's done with our sport for the last 10 years.
We're going to have to take that to that next step, that next level, because you don't know what's coming next.
With Sprint Unlimited, we want the trophy, so you'll see people pushing that and making some aggressive moves.
Those things, I think, are going to motivate everyone in the garage to really just drive our hearts out and make this a great event.
You know, as a competitor out there, we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
That's why we race. We race for the fans.
Who's it going to be this year? You have a voice, so vote now, vote often on the NASCAR Mobile 13 app or on NASCAR.com.
The Sprint Unlimited, you decide.